Welcome back to the Snod Pod with Jon Snodgrass, your mortgage resource. We're talking mortgages, real estate, and beyond. I've got Graham Wiemer here for a second episode on the Snod Pod here from McGillis and Wiemer and Wisconsin Family Law Resources. We're going to talk divorce and where I can come in and help with the mortgage aspect. So let's just jump right in. What are the rights for each spouse if they own a home together?
So in every divorce that we're handling, we're talking about the general term property division. Now, property certainly means real estate, but it means every asset, every debt. So we're talking about retirement accounts. We're talking about cars. I had a client who had a large amount of sports memorabilia. I believe it was 8 signed Giannis jerseys framed. So those could be valuable.
Wow.
Right? But certainly we're talking about the house. And so if a couple has a house together, they whether they're both on the deed or not, whether they're both on the mortgage or not, we're talking about what's happening with that house. Who's it going to be awarded to once the divorce is finalized? But also who's responsible for the mortgage in the meantime? Are we selling the house? If so, what's that process like? Is one person going to try to keep it? If the mortgage is already sort of just an individual mortgage, that might be different than the conversation if it's a joint mortgage. So you asked about the rights. It is an asset subject to the division, in property division. And so both parties are going to have, for the most part, both parties are going to have equal rights to request the option of keeping the house, or it's sold for that matter. Okay. And so we're looking at the equity, right? And we're saying approximately how much equity. Do we have to get an appraisal? Do we have to value this? But approximately how much?
Sure.
And then that's coming into the mathematic, conversation, all the different sort of spreadsheets and things that we do when we're looking at retirement accounts, credit card debt, the lake house, the
Sure.
snowmobile, whatever it might be.
Right.
So it might be very clear that it's a house they can only afford together.
Okay.
And so now you're getting divorced, you're getting physically separate, you're getting financially separate, and neither one can individually afford it.
Got it. Makes sense. You got to sell the house in that scenario.
Yep. But even in that situation, we're talking and we're saying, all right, what does it look like to try and keep this? And hey, maybe give John a call.
Yeah.
See, if you need to go from, even if you're not cashing out, you're doing something else to get the other person the equity.
Yep.
Just to get my ex-spouse's name off this mortgage. What does that look like for me to refinance?
Yep.
The timing, the new monthly amount, the new interest rate, the fees associated with that.
Yeah.
And that might be an information gathering thing. We're going, okay, we were probably going to sell the house. Mm-hmm. Now we're definitely going to sell the house. Right?
Yeah. Talk to me and let's walk through it. Hey, you just don't qualify or, know.
Or, I sometimes your debt to income ratio. And if you can tell me, what are you going to pay in child support? Because I'm looking at what your income is, or what are you going to receive in child support?
Right.
Right. And so to get to more directly answer your question, it's a conversation in every case because both parties sort of have equal rights, so to speak, to it.
Right. And I think it's great for you, or like I mentioned last time, like a financial planner, to bring me in early, especially if it's, somewhat amicable. And let's talk about it maybe even before you're filing or early on in filing. Let's just talk about things and figure it out, because you're going through a tough deal. You're getting divorced, especially, and if there's kids involved, man, the amount of stress and taking a toll on you. I want to try to make things as easy as possible on my end, because you got so much going on. So let's come up with a plan. But on my end, the biggest misconception is everybody kind of thinks like, oh, I can't do anything until I'm officially divorced, and that is not necessarily true. We just need a signed marital settlement agreement. And it needs to be filed. Mm-hmm. And we can get you a mortgage. We can get you a new house. Because it's in that marital settlement agreement, I guess you can speak to what's happening there. But, essentially everything is laid out.
Yep. So marital settlement agreement, I often say MSA.
MSA, right? That's right, yeah.
That is the written agreement signed by both parties that then is given to the judge to sort of say, hey, we're done. We've covered this.
Yeah.
And so that document's probably going to be pretty long, especially if you got kids. We talk about custody and placement. It's going to talk about child support. Even we're required to address who's going to provide health insurance for the kids moving forward. But it's certainly going to talk about assets and debts and house and mortgage.
Yeah.
And so it can be a situation where, well, we agree on the house. We just don't agree on the kids yet. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't have a marital settlement agreement just yet because you don't have everything agreed to. But potentially what you could do is a partial marital settlement agreement.
So, yeah.
Where you say, all right, here's our plan with the house or with all of property division and the finances or, these issues that we agree on. And so I have heard time and time again, I can't move on that mortgage. I can't get started. I can't close. I can't do this until we're divorced. And that's just not true, right?
Right.
Do some people say that? Sure.
Yeah.
Do some sort of not as experienced as you mortgage folks say that to clients? Yeah.
Well,
right. But it's just not true.
Well, yeah. And I think a lot of people just go to their bank.
Okay.
And this is not just in like a divorce situation. Just a lot of people just go to their bank regularly, and it's like they don't necessarily have,
right.
The knowledge, or depends on who you get at the bank, if they're brand
right.
new or it's a call center or something. But that's definitely a big misconception. And hey, we can get things done.
So yeah. So you could also have a situation where you have the marital settlement agreement. You got everything signed, agreed to. It's going to be finalized, but your hearing to finalize it isn't till 60, 90 days out.
Yep.
There's no reason not to start talking to you or somebody, to
right.
get the process going. Even if the document that's going to be needed is what is generated by that final, we can provide that immediately upon
right.
that, but get the process started now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also this idea of a partial marital settlement agreement.
Yeah.
So it can be about anything. It doesn't just have to be about the house, but certainly related to the house.
Sure.
You could put in writing, this is our agreement about the house. Partial marital settlement agreement regarding real estate. Mm-hmm. And then when you file a partial marital settlement agreement with the court, often, regularly, the judge will hold a hearing, doesn't take longer than 15 minutes, to approve that partial marital settlement agreement as a final order.
Okay.
And so you don't yet have a judgment of divorce, but you have finality, and it's conclusive what's going to happen.
Right.
And so even if you were saying, I need something signed by a judge, not just the parties, there is a way to go. We call it a Keller hearing.
Okay.
And it's named after a court case that went to the Court of Appeals involving two parties. Last name was Keller.
Okay.
So Keller versus Keller is sort of the Court of Appeals case that we all sort of learn from, and then call it a Keller hearing as well. Got it. But so what can happen is that you can sort of piecemeal the different issues in your case. So you could have that particular case, Keller, is often it happens when there's an agreement regarding kids, so custody and placement, but not anything else. Mm-hmm. So you say, well, let's do a partial marital settlement agreement regarding custody and placement. Let's have that Keller hearing where it's approved, it's adopted as an order, it's a final order. Custody and placement is done, as though you're divorced, even though you're fighting about whatever else it is, maintenance or spousal support or who gets the house. And all I'm saying is it could happen the opposite too. You can have disputes about anything else, but you go, I know I'm going to keep the house, and I know I'm going to refinance it, and I want to get going right now.
Yeah.
Put it in writing, partial marital settlement agreement, get that Keller hearing, get that order signed by the court, final order of the court on this issue. Yeah. And then that person could say to you, or their bank, like, hey, I know we're not divorced, but this part of it is done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's where we can, proceed on the mortgage aspect of things.
Yeah. And even the people on your end can know that part of the order is never going to change. Yeah. That's true too, potentially with, whether it's child support or spousal support, but a monthly payment from one party to the other, you can get those going before everything else is figured out too. Sure. And I think that's something you sometimes say to people that you need to see, right? Yeah. Yeah. See what the payment is going to be. Right. Right. So, I mean, just one quick example recently where I had a financial planner, actually, it's in process right now. The couple got divorced in late 21, and the divorce or the MSA stated that he or she,
kept the house, and she had to refinance by May of 2023 to get him off the mortgage. Yep. She is, staying at the house and they're sharing the kids, but she's got her interest rate of, 2.875,
right,
and she doesn't really qualify to refinance yet. At some point she'll get a better job, but so the ex-husband is just, it's an amicable. He's like, that's fine, but he went to his bank and said, here's what's happening. I haven't been refinanced off the mortgage yet, so I'm still on it. She's paying it on time. And they said, oh, no, you've got to be off the mortgage.
Right.
So he just was like, I'm done, because now he's got a fiance and a new kid, and he wants to buy a house. And they told him no. Well, his financial planner's like, hey, call Jon.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, send me over the marital settlement agreement.
Yep.
So in there, it clearly states, I double verify with our underwriter. The nice thing about us is we underwrite our loans in-house, which is a little bit different than a mortgage broker. Yep. They rely on the bank.
Fair point.
So we're a mortgage banker, so a little bit more flexibility with us. But I was like, oh yeah, hey, you're good to go. And he was just like, what? I am?
Yeah.
Or we are? And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter that she hasn't refinanced. It clearly states you are not liable for it anymore as of May 2023. We don't have to count it.
Yep.
And he's like, thrilled, jumping for joy. So like he waited like a year because his bank.
I think that happens more than we
Totally. And just trying to clear up the misconception. So now, boom, first house they wrote an offer on, got it. We're closing April 1st. And they're super psyched.
Great story. But illustrative of some of the stuff that we've talked about, how we can sort of work together.
Yes.
One thing I might have said to that person, although it worked out, is before we sign this marital settlement agreement, have somebody like Jon look at the language of this is going to be awarded to her. She's going to be responsible for the debt. She's going to hold you harmless. She's going to pay it 100% of the time, no matter what. Whatever the magic words are. Right?
Yeah.
So that we know in writing
is
what you need to see.
Yes.
Right. And so running a provision or a paragraph or the debt, like, hey, if my client, if my guy here wants to, end up buying a house in a year, is this going to be okay?
Yeah.
So that could be helpful sort of teamwork.
Yes. And so here's another one that and there's an example that comes up a lot. So like one of the parents is a homemaker, and the spouse that is been working is now going to be paying child support or alimony, and the MSA states, like, I'll give you a recent example, just it's on top of mind. They were going to pay out, I want to say it was like $12,500, maybe just use $15,000 to be easy number a month. And the stay-at-home mom was actually going to get a new house. Okay. So she's thinking, once we have the signed marital settlement agreement, I can go buy a house and put an accepted offer, go get an accepted offer. I said, well, hold on a second. Mortgage rules are you've got to receive the alimony, child support for 6 months, and it's got to be on time. And it can't be like, I gave you $7,500 this month, and hey, I'll catch you, $22,500 the next month. It's got to be exactly what the marital settlement agreement says. And once we get to that 6 months, hey, we're good.
So this is something I only learned from mortgage guys like you, but learned it long enough ago that we're paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And so we are saying if there's a house in that situation that this stay-at-home mom, soon-to-be ex-wife, has her eyes on, well, maybe we do something in the immediate short term so that 6-month window can start.
Sure.
Right. Again, even if it's just sort of piecemeal,
Yeah.
we're trying to start the 6 months, show the payments, show it's being received, making sure that on your end you can count it as income.
Right.
There's also, just that education piece to the client.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to get divorced and it's going to be okay, and you're going to find a place to live, but just know it.
Know it up front.
Yeah.
That
it might take 7, 9 months. Don't get too excited about that first house.
Right.
There's other ways to go about it, but that 6-month rule is an important one to consider. Does it always apply? Well, no, but it can. And So, for example, it might be a reason if you got a couple and they're pretty amicable and one's moving out and it's very likely that the other person's going to keep the house and they know within reason what's going to be paid from one to the other. Make it formal and make it formal sooner so that it counts, even though they're going, hey, no, we're good. This payment's going to be, and but it can be an added element of like, hey, no, this is why you might want to do this.
Right. Another piece that comes up sometimes is if the marital settlement agreement says, hey, you've got to pay them out. So let's say I'm doing a cash out refinance up to 80%. That's what we can go to. And whatever, let's say there's $200,000 that's going to get split in equity.
Yep.
One person gets 100 and the other gets 100. We need to see that money paid out.
Okay.
So let's say the husband's buying a house March 30th, but let's just say the refinance isn't closing till April 15th. Like, we can't do anything. You can't buy that house. Number one, maybe you don't need the money, but the marital settlement agreement states that the payout, you're supposed to get this. You've got to be paid out, and we've got to prove it.
And so we've tried to get a little creative in those situations sometimes. So, like you said, some people, they just have money from other sources. Whatever. But so sometimes the payout, what we call sometimes an equalization payment, and the refinance are tied together.
Oh,
it's
sure.
all going to happen at these exact times.
Yep.
And other times it's, no, this is the payout, and it's probably going to be because you refinance and get some cash. But otherwise, you got to figure it out separately.
Yeah.
And they can be on different timelines.
Right. A lot of times they are. We try to time it, especially in that amicable situation.
Yeah. But so, I'm saying to clients, just educate yourself. If you got a bunch of equity and we're trying to figure this out, how to refinance, how to maybe keep it, how to get her some money, whatever it is. Maybe there's a home equity line of credit, or maybe there's this cash advance thing that then you can go refinance later, all part of it, but get that person paid sooner.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Depends on the case.
Yep. And then the other thing is we kind of touched on it on our last episode, but, you sending somebody to me or doing a holistic call with the financial planner, me and you, hey, maybe the homemaker hasn't really been involved in the financial decisions. And, hey, let's take a look at your credit. Is your credit okay?
Right.
And if it's not, let's find that out early. And where I can come in is give you some tips on how to improve the credit.
Yep.
Or maybe on that payout, we use some of the money to pay off some credit card debt that maybe, you guys split it 50-50 or just another thing where I can help plan for you getting a mortgage on your own or buying on your own or refinancing. It just kind of goes back to just let's try to make this as easy as possible.
Well, it's that teamwork approach. We all have different experiences, skills. We all have different knowledge bases. There are some misconceptions. There are some things that people just don't know. It's not their fault. They don't know.
Sure.
There's a lot of good, even great financial advisors out there that are really helpful, that are bringing, the teamwork approach to it. Part of the people that I know and think of off the top of my head have an extra certification sometimes.
Yep.
CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst.
Sure.
And so in particular with a divorcing couple with one of the two parties or even both of them, that's sort of just extra knowledge, extra certification that can be very helpful.
Sure.
So I end up looking for the CDFA to, I don't know if there's a mortgage equivalent.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing that sometimes comes up is where we're dealing with somebody who's self-employed.
Okay.
And they think, oh, I make $300,000 a year. And which is, $25,000 a month. We deal more in, monthly income. Well, my experience with self-employed people is that they know about the money coming in, but they forget about, I pay that person, assistant $50,000.
Right.
Oh, wait, okay, now you're down to 20. What other expenses? So it's like your actual income is maybe 150.
Yeah.
You don't, let's, again, just good to start chatting about that and for me to get the tax returns. And
especially in the opposite too, right? And so you got business owners, self-employed people are going like, no, the only money I put in my pocket is real low. And you go, no, wait a minute. Your income and what you're sort of picking up as the owner of the company, whether or not you keep it for a rainy day or it is different than the number you think you live on.
Yeah.
And so it could be both ways. And it's just important to be able to identify what the questions might be, what the issues are, because you're saying, well, what is a mortgage banker going to say your income is? Because it might be different than what I say it is.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And why are we different? What are we looking at?
Right.
And I don't know that we'll ever get to who's more right.
Sure.
But, what is the reality of the situation, right? It could be good to, again, try to be on the same page.
Right. Well, and then I think there's another misconception sometimes where, again, dealing with one of the spouses who may not have been involved in the mortgage process before. Hey, we can actually use, if you're a W-2 employee, we can use your gross income. Right. And hey, how much can I qualify for? Now, I can, if your credit's really good, we can qualify you at what's called a 45% debt to income ratio. Okay. So if you make 120 grand, 45% of that would be 4,500. So as long as your monthly debt does not exceed 4,500, hey, you can qualify that. Now, if you've got really good credit, we can go up to basically 50%, 49.99. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we go to that. Hey, let's look at what the monthly payments are. Right. Oh, you're buying in Milwaukee County? Yeah. Property taxes are a little higher than Waukesha County or Zaki or others. Let's look at what the monthly payment. A lot of times I'll be like, hey, what do you feel comfortable with? It, $2,100 or $2,800. Right. And then I'll kind of reverse engineer. Well, then this is what price you should be looking at.
Yeah. Just had a situation where a lot of equity in a house, my guy wanted to keep it. Right. Even I'm going, you sure?
Yeah.
And so had to work with a mortgage broker, had to work with to really identify how much of the equity that he was going to need to get paid to the ex-spouse could he afford to cover by a new mortgage. And as it turned out, he had to give up a lot of his retirement account in addition because he couldn't qualify. It was going to be to your point, it's going to be way too high of a monthly amount for what he earned, what he was paying in child support, and what that new mortgage was going to be. Yeah. And so, I said to him, like, I'll help you, but maybe, do you really want this house? He said, I really want this house. Yeah. And I said, okay. And so then we had to go redo our math on other things because it wasn't just this equity, you can grab half of it no matter what, and then give it to her and keep the house. Yeah. And so it is important to have, those conversations about options. And even if it is an option, what does that mean on a month-to-month basis? Yeah. And then if it's not an option, we need to know that so we don't then agree to something in writing that is not even something that can be done. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got like a financial planner kind of on your staff at Wisconsin Family Resources, or maybe
I wouldn't call it on the staff. Okay,
but somebody
more, a lot of experience working together. There's a lot of good ones out there. Okay. So I like the people that I work with because I have the experience doing it. Sure. But and I will regularly say, let's run this scenario by the guy I'm thinking off the top of my head is Dan Smith, but it could be Dan, it could be other people. Sure. Let's see what he has to say about it.
Well, and just educating too, maybe, again, going back to maybe one spouse wasn't necessarily handling the 401k investments or maybe a brokerage account, and just, hey, let's given some education. Again, another just a great tool that you're bringing in.
Absolutely. And it's education for a number of reasons. It's because that education is good to have because the reality is that your situation is changing and you're going to need to be responsible for some of this stuff. Yeah. There are people who haven't written checks in a year or ever, right? Yeah. And so things are going to change in that regard. So just from day to day, week to week, month to month. But then there's also this situation where one person without enough financial knowledge doesn't really realize what they have to look forward to, what their projections are, what their investments are likely. But all of a sudden, like, do I have enough money or not? That's a very difficult question to answer, probably for us all, But certainly when you're trying to make decisions about how property division is going to happen, what assets, what debts, what am I getting from here? Am I taking half of that? Am I going to agree to that? And so somebody like a financial planner, somebody with that sort of knowledge can help you go like, no, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
In looking at your expenses, looking at your age and your investments and what, it can be that what was maybe a big dispute is not.
Yeah.
Because what I was worried about or what the client was worried about is just not likely to happen.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I'll be on the phone with a customer, maybe not delusions of grandeur per se, but like the financial planner will be like, hey, look, I really think you should stay to this payment.
Right.
Hey, you're not thinking about that Friday night fish fry,
right.
That, or that, hey, spring break vacation every year. Hey, that's a chunk of money.
Yep.
Like maybe let's bring your monthly mortgage payment down. Let John reverse engineer what price range you should be looking at.
Yep.
So yeah, again, maybe to wrap up, you're taking that holistic approach where it's a team thing, divorce attorney, financial advisor, mortgage guy, and then when you're bringing in the kids, you're bringing in, psychologist or.
The team approach, interdisciplinary, collaborative. We sort of use those words.
Sure.
They do have different meanings, but we're all talking about the same thing. Right? Holistic. We're talking about working together.
Yeah.
And we're talking about being intentional about it because if we can make things easier for our mutual clients, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that is a philosophy that I have grown into over the years, and the more I do it, the more we take it, the more I want to.
Yeah.
So it is a sort of goal. It is a vision. It is a way forward. Divorce is sad, but it doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah.
So let's try and make it work for everybody, the kids, but both parties too.
Hey, this is the next phase of your life, and hey, you're gonna get through this.
Yep.
Well, hey, before we end up, can you maybe say where people can find you on social media or your website?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate this opportunity very much.
You're welcome.
The website for the law firm generally is wiemerlaw.com, WIEMERLAW.com. But the division of the firm that I'm talking about, we've been talking about, Wisconsin Family Law Resources. You can get it from that website. It's on social media. It is, frankly, what we're trying to promote.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that the interdisciplinary, holistic sort of approach is as out there, is as popularized, right? Is as advertised.
Yeah.
It is not the way for the attorneys to make the most money, and so then attorneys don't, promote it. And so. That's sort of what I'm here to sort of preach is. So there's the Collaborative Foundation of Wisconsin. That's the Collaborative Family Law Council of Wisconsin. And that's a group, a teaching organization and networking organization. That's really where to go to get a lot of this information, not just about me, although I am on that website.
Okay.
That's collabdivorce.com. So COLLAB divorce.com. And so that's the Collaborative Family Law Council of Wisconsin. And that's the people that sort of believe in this same stuff. So that is mortgage brokers, that's realtors, that's mental health professionals, that's attorneys, that's mediators, that's social workers. That's the place to go for more information. View my profile, view other attorneys that feel similarly. There's all kinds of tabs for more information about the process and the sort of team approach, but there's also even just find a professional.
Yeah.
And so you can do it by practice area, by your job description. You could do it by who's closest to me.
Yeah.
There's trainings too. So if this is something that a listener, a colleague, or somebody is interested in. There's different things that their webinars, or the in-person seminars. That's the place to go. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. All right. Well, Graham, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Graham Wiemer, McGillis and Wiemer Law Firm and Wisconsin Family Resources.
Yep.
Check it out. Obviously, divorce is a tough thing to go through, but Graham and his team is, worth the phone call, but definitely just, considering that holistic approach, collaborative approach. Well, this has been the Snod Pod with Jon Snodgrass, your mortgage resource, where we're talking mortgages, real estate, and beyond. Have a great day.